Good evening all. In today's Crack the Code series, we are going to understand the latest GSTN advisory that explains about how to handle the inadvertently rejected records that has flown through IMS. So there are typically 4 scenarios are explained. Now let's understand one by one. First error. How can a recipient avail ITC of wrongly rejected invoices in IMS as corresponding GSTR 3B of the same tax period was also filed by the recipient? Now let's break it into two. One is that the supplier has filed the GSTR1 correctly, that has flown into the IMS of the recipient. He looks at the records. The action that he needs to do is either accept, reject, or keep it pending. Instead of accepting it mistakenly, he has rejected it, right? So if he rejects, what happens? He is barred from claiming the input tax credit. So if he comes to know that he has wrongly rejected, what he needs to do is he has to communicate to the supplier. Even otherwise, the supplier will, on his dashboard, he will come to know that the recipient has rejected certain invoices. So if that being the case, there are two options for the supplier. One, if it is within the due date of filing the GSTR 1A, all the supplier needs to do is he has to make the amendment correction in the GSTR 1A so that immediately it gets reflected in the IMS portal, and then the recipient is eligible to take the input tax credit by recomputing the GSTR 2B. So there is absolutely no problem as long as it is within the same month and it is done through GSTR 1A. Now let's move on to the second option, wherein the recipient has already filed the GSTR 3B and the supplier has also filed. If that being the case, the only option left for the supplier is he can do it in the subsequent month in the GSTR1 amendment, so that once he does the amendment, it will get reflected in GSTR2B. So the recipient can avail the input tax credit as it appears in the amended GSTR2B in the subsequent month. I was explaining you the scenario 1. Now let's understand from the supplier point of view. The supplier has correctly updated his GSTR1. So whereas the recipient has rejected, will it have any impact on his outward liability? The answer is no, because if he is doing it within time, it's going to be a mere correction through GSTR1A. Otherwise, it is going to be amendment of GSTR1 in the subsequent month. So whatever may be the case, there will not be any change in the liability of the supplier because of the wrong rejection. It is only just the plus and minus. So the differential tax liability is not going to be anything. So there won't be any impact with respect to the supplier. Now let's move on to the third error committed by the recipient. As a recipient taxpayer, he was supposed to accept the credit note, whereas he has not accepted the credit note. He has rejected the credit note. That means that his liability would have come down. Actually, if credit note is accepted, his liability should go up. That means the input tax credit will come down. His outward liability will go up. Whereas in this case, what has happened? He has rejected the original credit note. If that being the case, here also there are two things. The minute it is rejected, wrongly rejected, his GSTR 2B will not capture that input tax credit. That means he will end up getting more input tax credit. So there are two ways for him. He'll have to approach the supplier, and then the supplier, if it is within time period, he can do the rectification in GSTR 1A by correction mechanism. By giving the correct credit note, he can make the amendment. So because of that, there will not be any impact. Assuming that the he has rejected it wrongly beyond the due date, rejected the IMS, and the time period has also lapsed. Like, the supplier has filed his, before filing his 3B, but the time barred for GSTR 1A. If that being the case, then there is no option. The supplier will end up paying more liability because of the rejection of credit note. Then in the next month, once again, the amendment will have to be carried out. Now let's move on to the fourth error. The original credit note was rejected by the recipient. Supplier furnishes the same credit note in GSTR 1A of the same period or in the amendment table of 1F IFF of any tax period till the specified time. Then what impact it will have on the supplier's liability? In the intermittent period, there will not be any impact because it's only the differential tax liability is going to be nil. Because of rejection of the original credit note, the supplier's liability will go up. If he does the amendment correction through GSTR 1A, there will not have any impact because the data will flow from GSTR 1A to IMS, and from IMS, by clicking the recompute button, it will go to his GSTR 2B of the recipient. So he will end up claiming the correct input tax credit. Whereas if it goes beyond the date, as I mentioned before, the supplier will end up paying more taxes, and then in the subsequent month only it will get offset by filing the correct amendment of the credit note because of the mistake committed by the recipient. So this is the GSTN advisory which has come out with the questions. I hope this video was useful. Thank you.